In a nice neighborhood in upstate New York, in a nice house like the ones you know, behind closed doors, a father commands his 13-year-old son to pick up a camera and start recording.
Look at me, bitch. You play those stupid games with me, I'll knock your teeth out of your face.
The father delivers a verbal flogging to the mother in front of their children.
You act like a in front of the kids.
It will go on for nearly an hour.
You little slut.
If I see a dog trim your ass up, I won't stop. I won't stop.
It is domestic abuse, the kind we hear about but often don't believe.
I don't want to see your stupid ass crooked self. Stupid ass helper.
Susan is 42 years old. They have 3 children. The father, Ulner, directs his 13-year-old son, the cameraman, to get a close-up of their emotionally battered mother.
Zoom in. Do you see a tear?
Nah.
Not a tear out of that damn face.
Well, I got that.
He indicates he wants the tape to prove that his anger at his wife is justified. What prompts his tirade? Susan asks him if he'd like some lunch.
Come over here with this stupid
Yeah.
and stir it up. No, you didn't leave. You didn't just come ask me about lunch.
He even makes his 13-year-old son join him in blaming her.
And you enjoy getting your ass whooped because that's obvious. Yes, you do.
Because you know it provokes it. You do it anyway.
You do it anyway.
And if you're wondering what kind of woman would endure something like this if you're certain she's nothing like you, well, take a look at Susan on tape 3 years ago and look at the woman she really is today.
What do you see when you look at her?
A woman desperately trying to save whatever she can salvage of her family, desperately trying to please her husband and do whatever it is that he wants her to do.
According to a Department of Justice survey, 1 in 4 American women experience domestic violence. For Susan, the story begins when she is 18 years old, the daughter of a black father, a white mother, who falls in love with a 26-year-old guitarist in a popular local band. He is talented, charismatic. His name is Ulner.
I would go to see him play on the weekends, and we'd talk on the phone, and we just sort of grew to know each other.
Did you say to yourself, I'm happy?
Absolutely.
They got married. He worked as a musician, she with a health insurance company, and they had their 3 children. We're covering their faces at her request.
Everyone looks at you, and I know the first thing they would think is, so beautiful, so intelligent. You must have been able to take care of yourself in any situation.
I was shy. I was very green. You know, my world was absolutely inside of the walls of our home.
She says at first her husband was just very demanding and controlling, not so different from her own father, whom she described as overbearing. But she says the more she tried to comply with her husband's demands, the more obsessive his control.
Did you have friends over for dinner?
Never. He never wanted friends over. He never wanted different.
Stupid ass helper.
In that 51-minute tape, Ulner calls Susan stupid 36 times.
And just you standing there talking stupid like that pisses me off. Because you should be on your knees apologizing to you stupid ass heifer.
The rants.
Yes. The mental and verbal abuse, just hours. I mean, he would call it a family meeting. And these family meetings were all about what mommy did wrong today. He totally had my children completely on his side, completely brainwashed. Not only could I not believe his behavior, but I couldn't believe my own children's behavior.
She says the verbal abuse had gone on for years before the words became fists. She says the first time he hit her, it was because she forgot something he wanted at a nearby grocery store. Her oldest child, her daughter, was 19.
He beat me down to the floor. I was crawling on the floor.
At the time of the tape, she was working, he was not. He was jealous of men on the outside.
And this got to do with somebody at work.
It does not. I don't have anyone.
Heifer lying ass.
I can't tell you how many baseball coaches I was accused of, swimming teachers, karate teacher, other parents, anything.
Video this lying ass heifer.
But her greatest agony was the role of her children.
When you think your son was on the other side of that lens.
Not only that, my younger son was right there also.
He was in the room.
Their youngest son, 8 years old.
Sit your stupid ass on it.
June 22, 2003, terrifying images of physical abuse. The kind the experts say takes place every 15 seconds someplace in this country. The difference is, this is caught on video.
You don't know what to do. Look at your stupid ass. Look at the way you look.
This next story is one that is hard to tell, and the video is hard to watch. But the victim feels it's important that you know what happened to her inside a local jail.
Channel 3 News is the only station in town who has this disturbing video. Now, the investigator, Tom Meyer, joins us with an exclusive Channel 3 News investigation on what's being called an outrageous strip search of a Stark County woman. Tom?
Well, Hope Steffi has sued the Stark County Sheriff, accusing deputies of using excessive and brutal force. The sheriff denies the allegation. Now, this story may be hard to watch, but the victim and her husband want me to show you what happened in hopes that you and those you love will never experience a night like this.
You're going on precautions.
Hope Steffi is scared to death. Her husband, a high school educator, I want to show you this, okay? Can't believe what he's watching on videotape as Stark County Sheriff deputies pin his wife down to a jail cell floor. That's wrong. The video, obtained exclusively by Channel 3 News, gives us a rare inside look at what can happen to you or a loved one, even if you're the one who calls police for help. What did she say?
She said she felt like she was raped without penetration.
Back to this disturbing video in a moment. First, how did Steffi wind up in the sheriff's custody? Amazingly, it started with a 911 call for help.
Who's crying?
The girl that got attacked, my second cousin.
Okay, what, is she hurt?
She has a cut on her nose, it's bleeding, and there's a patch of hair on the ground beside the car.
A deputy responds to a report of an assault. Hope Steffi is identified as the victim, the one who needed help. But when help arrives, things get even worse.
Hope was not treated as the victim.
The situation gets complicated. Steffi says she accidentally turned over the wrong driver's license. It belonged to her sister who passed away. Steffi keeps it as a personal memento. Despite her pleas to return it, her lawyer says the officer refuses.
The officer had said to her, "Shut up about your dead sister."
The sheriff denied that allegation in a written response to Steffi's lawsuit. He accuses the injured Steffi of starting the altercation with a deputy. Soon, Steffi is put in the back seat of the sheriff's cruiser. Listen closely on dash cam video as Steffi's friend reassures her that she's the victim and that nothing will happen to her.
I know you didn't do anything, Hope. He needs to know that it's not your fault.
Eventually, Steffi is handcuffed and hauled away to the Stark County Jail to answer questions. Among them, do you have any weapons or sharp objects? Have you ever thought of harming yourself? When Steffi responds, now or ever, she says deputies knock her down and place her feet in a pretzel position.
And you have to ask yourself, what was the purpose of this strip search? What was the necessity of it? This was a disorderly conduct claim.
Steffi repeatedly questions officers about what they're doing.
This is horrific. This is a government agency forcing their will on a citizen.
Steffi pleads for deputies to stop, and when they begin removing her underwear and bra, she begins to scream.
That could be your wife. That could be anybody's wife.
For the next 6 hours, Steffi was left in a cell completely naked, without even a blanket to cover herself, and the sheriff admits it. She says she wrapped herself in toilet paper to keep warm and to prevent anyone else from seeing her.